What if I told you that your body burns nearly double the calories in cold weather compared to normal conditions? What if I told you that the US military requires soldiers in Arctic conditions to consume 4,500 calories per day, almost twice what a normal adult eats? What if I told you that most cold weather deaths happen not because people freeze, but because their bodies run out of fuel to generate heat? This completely changed how I think about winter survival. We focus on jackets, blankets, and heaters, but the real battle happens inside your body, a constant furnace that needs fuel to keep burning at 98.6 degrees. When I started studying cold weather fatalities, 342 deaths across Texas, Buffalo, and this January storm, I discovered that survival isn't about what you wear, it's about what you know. 9 specific moves, 0 cost. Knowledge that military Arctic units train on, that our grandparents practiced, and that 99% of Americans have never learned. These survival moves will be worth gold when temperatures drop. Number 1, the caloric loading protocol. Let me start with the science that shocked me most. In 1993, researchers from McGill University conducted a study on Canadian infantry soldiers during Arctic field exercises. Temperatures dropped to negative 30 degrees Celsius. And what they discovered changed everything we thought about cold weather survival. Those soldiers needed between 4,200 and 5,000 calories per day just to maintain body function. That's not for extreme athletes. That's for basic survival in cold conditions. Your body is a furnace, and cold weather forces that furnace to work overtime. Every shiver is your muscles burning calories to generate heat. Every breath of cold air requires energy to warm before reaching your lungs. Here's what killed me about the Texas data. When investigators reviewed the 246 Winter Storm Uri deaths, they found a pattern nobody talked about. Many victims had eaten their last meal 12 to 18 hours before death. Their bodies simply ran out of fuel. The survival move is counterintuitive. Eat before you feel cold. Eat even when you're not hungry. And prioritize fat-heavy foods: peanut butter, nuts, cheese, chocolate. Fat provides 9 calories per gram compared to 4 for carbohydrates. Your grandmother knew this. She'd make heavy stews before winter storms, dense, fatty meals that kept the internal furnace burning. Modern convenience made us forget. Our bodies didn't change. The science didn't change. We just stopped preparing. When temperatures drop, calories become currency. Stock up before the storm hits. Number 2, the colder principle. In 1959, the U.S. Army published a field manual called FM 3170, Basic Cold Weather Manual, and buried inside was a 6-letter acronym that Arctic soldiers have memorized for over 60 years. Colder. C. Keep clothing clean. Dirty fabric loses insulation value because grime fills the air pockets that trap heat. O. Avoid overheating. This one kills people. When you sweat in cold weather, that moisture becomes a death sentence. Wet fabric against skin accelerates heat loss dramatically. L. Wear clothing. Loosen in layers. Tight clothing restricts blood flow. Layers create air pockets. 3 thin layers outperform 1 thick layer every time. D. Keep clothing dry. The moment fabric gets wet, from sweat, snow, or any moisture, remove it immediately. A wet base layer can drop your core temperature even in moderate cold. E. Examine clothing daily. Look for tears, worn spots, failed seams. In survival conditions, a small hole becomes a major heat leak. R. Repair damage immediately. Don't wait. A ripped jacket in negative temperatures isn't an inconvenience. It's an emergency. Here's what haunts me about this principle. The military has taught colder for over 6 decades. It saved countless soldiers in Korea, Alaska, and Arctic deployments worldwide. But somehow this knowledge never reached civilians. It's not taught in schools. It's not in emergency broadcasts. It exists in declassified manuals that nobody reads. Until now. Memorize colder. It might save your life. Number 3, the cotton kills rule. There's a phrase in wilderness survival communities that sounds dramatic until you understand the science behind it. Cotton kills. I used to dismiss this as outdoor enthusiast exaggeration. Then I started reading hypothermia case studies. And the pattern became impossible to ignore. Cotton absorbs moisture, sweat, snow, humidity, and holds it directly against your skin. When cotton gets wet, it loses approximately 90% of its insulating value. But it gets worse. Wet cotton doesn't just fail to insulate, it actively conducts heat away from your body. Water transfers heat 25 times faster than air. So that comfortable cotton sweatshirt becomes a cooling system working against you. The Texas autopsy reports revealed something chilling. Many victims were found in cotton pajamas, cotton sweatpants, cotton t-shirts, comfortable indoor clothing that became deadly when temperatures dropped and power failed. Here's the survival move. Identify every cotton item in your emergency clothing supply and replace it. Wool retains 80% of its insulating value even when wet. Synthetic fleece dries quickly and maintains warmth. Silk-based layers wick moisture away from skin. Your grandparents wore wool, not because they couldn't afford cotton, because they understood what happened when clothing got wet in winter. Check your closet right now. Check your emergency kit. If your cold weather backup plan includes cotton, you're betting your life on staying perfectly dry. That's a bet you'll lose. Number 4, the ground barrier protocol. Most people obsess over what's above them in cold weather. Blankets, jackets, hats. But the real killer comes from below. The ground conducts heat away from your body 25 times faster than air. Read that again. 25 times faster. When I studied survival cases from Buffalo's 2022 blizzard, I found families who piled every blanket in the house on top of themselves, but slept directly on floors, concrete, bare ground. They woke up hypothermic, despite being covered in fabric. Here's the physics. Your body weight compresses any insulation beneath you. That down comforter that keeps you warm on top? Flatten it underneath your body and it's nearly worthless. The compressed material can't trap air, and without trapped air, you have no insulation. Military Arctic training addresses this directly. Soldiers are taught to prioritize ground insulation before any other consideration. The protocol requires minimum R value of 5 between body and earth in freezing conditions. The survival move is simple but critical. Create a barrier. Multiple layers work best. Cardboard provides surprising insulation, roughly R1 per layer. Foam camping pads, pine boughs if you're outdoors. Even crumpled newspapers create air pockets that slow heat transfer. Depression-era families slept on hay, straw, corn husks, anything to separate bodies from cold floors. They didn't have R-value calculations. They had generations of trial and error. Never sleep directly on a cold surface. The heat you lose downward will kill you faster than the cold air above. Number 5, the one-room protocol. In January 2026, a family of 4 in Louisiana survived 72 hours without power during temperatures that killed their neighbors. When emergency responders asked how they managed, the answer was surprisingly simple. They abandoned their entire house except one small bedroom. Here's the math that makes this work. The human body at rest generates approximately 80 to 100 watts of heat. A family of 4 produces 320 to 400 watts, equivalent to several space heaters running continuously. But that heat only matters if it's concentrated. A 2,000 square foot house disperses body heat until it's undetectable. A single 150 square foot room captures and retains it. The survival reports from Texas confirmed this pattern. Victims who spread throughout their homes, each person in separate bedrooms, showed faster core temperature decline than families who consolidated into single rooms. The protocol requires more than just choosing a room. Select an interior space with minimal exterior walls. Windows are heat leaks. Cover them with blankets, plastic, anything that adds insulation. Close all doors. Seal gaps with towels or fabric. Here's what Depression-era families understood intuitively. They didn't heat houses, they heated rooms. The parlor stove warmed one space where everyone gathered. Bedrooms stayed cold. You went to bed already warm and relied on heavy quilts. Modern homes with central heating made us forget this principle. When that heating fails, the old knowledge becomes survival knowledge. Shrink your space. Concentrate your heat. Survive together. Number 6, the hypothermia recognition system. There's a diagnostic tool that wilderness medicine instructors call the umbles. When someone starts to stumble, mumble, fumble, and grumble, they're entering hypothermia. And here's what terrifies me about this condition. The person experiencing it often doesn't recognize what's happening. Hypothermia attacks cognitive function first. Judgment deteriorates. Decision-making fails. Victims frequently insist they're fine while displaying obvious symptoms. By the time they acknowledge a problem, they may be too impaired to solve it. The progression follows predictable stages. Mild hypothermia begins at core temperature around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll see intense shivering, difficulty with complex tasks, poor coordination. Moderate hypothermia hits between 90 and 95 degrees. Shivering becomes violent, then paradoxically stops. Speech slurs. Confusion increases dramatically. Severe hypothermia below 90 degrees is where paradoxical undressing occurs. The brain malfunctions so completely that victims feel burning hot. They remove clothing while freezing. 25 to 50% of hypothermia deaths involve victims found partially or fully undressed. The survival move is constant vigilance, not for yourself but for others. You cannot trust your own judgment once hypothermia begins. Establish a buddy system. Check each other every 30 minutes. Look for the umbles. Here's the critical timeline. Once shivering stops, death can occur within 30 to 60 minutes without intervention. That window is shorter than most people imagine. When you notice the umbles in someone else, act immediately. When someone notices them in you, trust their assessment over your own feelings. Number 7. The Vehicle Survival Protocol. In December 2022, a man survived 18 hours stranded in his car during Buffalo's blizzard, while others died in similar situations within hours. The difference wasn't luck, it was protocol. The National Weather Service has published specific guidance that most people have never seen, and it contradicts what many assume they should do. First, stay in your vehicle. This cannot be emphasized enough. Disorientation in blizzard conditions happens within minutes. People have died 50 feet from their cars because they couldn't find their way back through wind-driven snow. Second, run your engine for 10 minutes per hour only. This preserves fuel while providing periodic heat. But there's a critical addition most people miss. You must clear snow from your exhaust pipe every single hour. Blocked exhaust forces carbon monoxide into the cabin. This kills people every winter. Third, crack a window slightly on the downwind side. Carbon monoxide is odorless. Even without exhaust blockage, running an engine in an enclosed space builds dangerous concentrations. A small opening prevents accumulation. Fourth, keep interior lights on when the engine runs. This helps rescuers locate you. The man who survived Buffalo had learned this protocol from his grandfather, a truck driver who'd survived being stranded in the 1970s. Knowledge passed down through generations. Here's what kills me about the Buffalo data. Several victims left their cars to seek help and were found frozen within 100 yards. The car they abandoned could have saved them. Your vehicle is a survival shelter. Treat it that way. Number 8. The hot water bottle technique. Before electric blankets, before heated mattress pads, before any modern warming technology, there was the hot water bottle. And this Depression-era essential remains one of the most effective cold weather survival tools ever invented. The science is elegant. Water holds heat far longer than air. A bottle of hot water placed in a sleeping bag or under blankets radiates warmth for 6 to 8 hours. It provides targeted heat to your core without any electricity, any fuel, any ongoing resource consumption. But placement matters enormously. The optimal position is between your thighs near the femoral arteries. These major blood vessels carry enormous blood volume. Warming them effectively warms your entire body. The heated blood circulates through your system, raising core temperature efficiently. Secondary positions include the stomach area and lower back, anywhere with significant blood flow near the surface. Here's the survival adaptation. You don't need an actual hot water bottle. Any watertight container works. Nalgene bottles are popular in camping communities. Even sealed plastic bottles can serve if they handle hot water without deforming. The Depression-era technique went further. Families would heat bricks or stones by the fire, wrap them in cloth, and place them in beds before sleeping. The principle is identical: thermal mass that slowly releases heat throughout the night. I found references to this technique in military cold weather manuals, wilderness survival guides, and family journals from the 1930s. The consistency across sources confirmed its effectiveness. 0 electricity, 0 cost, hours of warmth. This old knowledge still works. Number 9. The hydration discipline. Here's a myth that kills people every winter: eating snow for hydration. It sounds logical. Snow is frozen water. You're thirsty, problem solved. But the physics tells a different story entirely. Converting snow to liquid water requires energy, and that energy comes from your body. Eating snow forces your core to expend precious calories melting ice crystals. Your internal temperature drops. You've traded hydration for hypothermia acceleration, but hydration itself remains critical. Cold air is typically dry air. Your respiratory system loses moisture with every breath. And here's the counterintuitive part. Cold suppresses thirst sensation. You can become significantly dehydrated without ever feeling thirsty. Dehydration thickens blood, forcing your heart to work harder. It reduces circulation to extremities, accelerating frostbite risk. It impairs cognitive function, exactly what you cannot afford in a survival situation. The survival protocol is disciplined hydration regardless of thirst. Melt snow first using any available heat source. Body heat works if nothing else exists. Place a container of snow inside your clothing, against your stomach. Let your body temperature do the melting before you consume it. Military Arctic training mandates hydration schedules. Soldiers drink at predetermined intervals, not when thirsty. The research showed that ad hoc hydration based on thirst led to 15 to 20% dehydration levels even when water was available. Your grandmother kept kettles of warm water available all winter, not for tea, for drinking. She understood that cold weather dehydration was invisible but dangerous. Trust the schedule, not the sensation. 9 survival moves, 0 cost. Knowledge that exists in military manuals, Depression-era family wisdom, and medical research, but somehow never reaches the people who need it most. 342 Americans have died in cold weather emergencies over the last 4 years. Texas, Buffalo, this January. And the pattern in those deaths is heartbreaking in its consistency. The same mistakes, the same preventable failures, the same forgotten knowledge that could have saved them. Your body is a furnace that needs fuel. Cotton kills when wet. The ground steals heat faster than air. Cold attacks your judgment before your body. And old techniques from your grandparents' generation still work exactly as they did a century ago. The next winter storm isn't a question of if, it's when. And when it hits, when the power fails, when temperatures drop below what your home was designed to handle, these 9 moves become worth more than any amount of money. Share this with someone you care about. Save it somewhere you can find it when you need it. And remember, survival isn't about luck or equipment. It's about knowledge. The people who know these moves live. The people who don't become statistics. Now you know.